I'm Effie, this is What Effie Reads, and today I'm going to be going through the 12 books that I'm going to prioritise reading in 2023. I made one of these lists for 2022 at the start of the year, and it only had 5 books on, but somehow I managed to kind of fail and only read 2 of the books off that list. I guess the thing with this list is, unlike my self-destruct, there are no consequences if I don't read them. This is just kind of a way of almost calling myself out and saying, these are the books I really want to read, I really should have read, and yet I haven't, so I want to make them a focus for the coming year. Much like with my These Books Will Self-Destruct in 12 Months video, I decided to hand over some control to my best friend Shannon, whose channel is Head in the Books. Please go subscribe if you aren't already. She is utterly wonderful and she always puts out great content. So the way that I did it was that I went through my shelves and I picked out 6 books, and then I sent across photos of all of my unread books and asked her to pick another 6 for me. So we're going to start off with the 6 that I picked for myself. I will say that the books that I've put on this list, I don't necessarily know what they're about, just that I kind of know in my gut that they're books that I really want to read and that kind of really appeal to me. So in this video we'll kind of be discovering together what these books are about. I mean, I think a lot of them are relatively popular books, so it's probably more me discovering what they're about than you as the viewer, but maybe some of these are books that you've not heard of before and you go, ooh, actually that sounds amazing. So first up we have Beloved by Toni Morrison. I haven't read any Toni Morrison, and this was the first one that I picked up. It's looking a little worse for wear, if I'm honest. Anyway, that's all beside the point. So this blurb says, terrible, unspeakable things happened to Seth at Sweet Home, the farm where she lived as a slave for so many years until she escaped to Ohio. Her new life is full of hope, but 18 years later she's still not free. Seth's new home is not only haunted by the memories of her past, but also by the ghost of her baby who died nameless and whose tombstone is engraved with a single word, beloved. This sounds utterly heartbreaking, and I think I tend to reach for harder hitting books, but I also think it's just overall going to be a book that I think I'm going to really love, and hopefully by putting this book on my list and the other books, it will give me that push to actually read it in 2023. The next book is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. I read The Summer That Melted Everything, I want to say last year, and absolutely utterly adored it. So I've got a lot of desire to read more Tiffany McDaniel. I also know that Spoops really loved this book, and a lot of the time my reading taste kind of aligns with Spoops. There have been a few instances where we have differed, but generally I think if Spoops likes a book, there's a fairly high possibility I also will. A girl comes of age against the knife. So begins the story of Betty Carpenter. Born in a bathtub in 1954 to a Cherokee father and white mother, Betty is the 6th of 8 siblings inhabiting a world of poverty and violence. When her family's darkest secrets are brought to light, Betty has no choice but to reckon with the brutal history hiding in the hills, as well as the heart-wrenching cruelties and incredible characters she encounters in her rural town of Breathed, Ohio. But despite the hardships she faces, Betty is resilient. Her curiosity about the natural world, her fierce love for her sisters, and her father's brilliant stories are kindling for the fire of her own imagination. And in the face of all she bears witness to, Betty discovers an escape. She begins to write. So, sounds like it's probably going to be really heartbreaking, but also utterly beautiful, which is kind of how I would sum up The Summer That Melted Everything. An Ordinary Wonder by Buki Papillon. I picked this up because this was recommended by a booktuber. I can't remember his name right now, but I will try and remember and link him in the description. But I remember him talking about this book and just going, yeah, I really want to pick that up. An Ordinary Wonder is a story of the courage needed to be yourself. Otto leaves for boarding school with one plan: excel and escape his cruel home. Falling in love with his roommate was certainly not on the agenda, but fear and shame force him to hide his love and true self. Back home, weighed down by the expectations of their wealthy and powerful family, the love of Otto's twin sister wavers, and as their world begins to crumble around them, Otto must make drastic changes that will alter the family's lives forever. Richly imagined with art, proverbs, and folk tales, this moving and modern novel follows Otto through life at home and at boarding school in Nigeria, through the heartbreak of living as a boy despite their profound belief they are a girl, and through a hunger for freedom that only a new life in the United States can offer. Oh wow, so it's potentially a trans story, but if not, it's an exploration of gender, and just generally it sounds like it's going to be really good. And it doesn't look terribly long. I mean, I think sometimes books can be deceptive, but it does look relatively thin. Oh, it's about the 300-page mark, I think. Oh, okay. So I guess now I know a bit more about the main character, because there's a link at the end of the book for kind of more information. But this book comes in at 313 pages, so not super short, but also not crazy long either. Take It Back by Kia Abdullah. I believe this is the first one in a series, and I've read the second one. I could be wrong though. You know, I can't remember the title of the book I have read, but it was really cleverly constructed so that you could see two seemingly conflicting accounts of an event happening simultaneously. I also find it really refreshing to follow the main character, who is a lawyer who is also a Muslim woman, and I just generally really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the way that Abdullah writes, and I've been meaning to pick this up for a while. In fact, I think I had this on my shelves before I picked up the other book and just didn't realise. So the blurb says, the victim, a 16-year-old girl with facial deformities, neglected by an alcoholic mother who accuses the boys of something unthinkable. The defendants, 4 handsome teenage boys from hard-working immigrant families, all with corroborating stories. Whose side would you take? Zara Khalil, one of London's brightest young legal minds, shattered the expectations placed on her by her family and forged a glittering career at the bar, all before hanging up her barrister's wig to help the victims who needed her most. Victims like Jodie Wolfe. Jodie's own best friend doesn't even believe her claims that their classmates carried out such a crime, but Zara does, and Zara is determined to fight for her. Jodie and Zara become the centre of the most explosive criminal trial of the year, in which ugly divisions within British society are exposed. As everything around Zara begins to unravel, she becomes even more determined to get Jodie the justice she's looking for, but at what price? So I think this is going to be quite a challenging read, but I also feel confident that the author is going to handle it well, given that my experience with her writing in the other book that I've read did handle things with a lot of gentleness and care, which these subject matters require. The next entry that I've popped on this list is actually 2 books, well, comics, and it is Shades of Magic, The Steel Prince, The Rebel Army, and The Knight of Knives. So these are books 2 and 3 in the Steel Prince comics, and this series follows a character that you meet in the Darker Shade of Magic series, but you're meeting them, I think it's 20 or 30 years. I'm not sure, quite a few years before the events of A Darker Shade of Magic, and you generally just get to see more about the person that they are and the magic that they have, which definitely felt very unique in the Shades of Magic series. The primary reason that I want to read these in 2023 is in October. It's been announced it is October, so is it going to be the 3rd of October like I predict? I don't know. But in October, the first book in the follow-up series to the A Darker Shade of Magic series, Threads of Power, I don't know what it's actually going to be called, but the series is going to be called Threads of Power, comes out, and I just want to get completely caught up on like all the books in this world, and these 2 are what I've got left in this world. I mean, I've got a lot of V. Schwab that I still haven't read, but specifically in the Shades of Magic world, these 2 are what I need to catch up on. The next book is not an oddity, but another moment of Shannon and I basically being on the same wavelength, because it actually made both of our lists of 6 books. But obviously, because the previous entry was 2, I still actually ended up with 12 books overall. I just was kind of cheating a little bit and putting 2 on as 1 in the previous entry. So the final book out of my 6 and the first one out of Shannon's 6 is Chris 6 Venom by Penelope Douglas. I started this in August and I just found that I didn't have enough time to read it, and then I got distracted with other things. So I got 35 pages in, and I was annotating as well, which obviously slows down my reading speed, but it's a sapphic Penelope Douglas. I've read 1 Penelope Douglas so far and I enjoyed it. Quite dark, quite twisted, but enjoyable. I believe this is a bully romance, and I'm not sure if I've technically read a bully romance, but like I say, I was enjoying what I'd read so far. It's got a really long blurb, but I think it basically boils down to Clay and Olivia are 2 people that don't get along, are from different places. I don't know, but essentially they end up in somewhat of a toxic relationship. I think there's also coming to terms with your sexuality as part of the themes. But yeah, hoping that I will get this read in 2023 and also just generally finish annotating it, because I was having a really enjoyable time. Oh, and why Shannon put it on my list. Shannon basically just said, will this finally be the year you read another Penelope Douglas? Which I think is fair. The one Penelope Douglas that I have read, I read as a buddy read with Shannon. So it's like I haven't read Penelope Douglas off my own steam, but I do keep like reaching for them. I just never end up picking them up. Next up we have Sorrowland, which I was gifted last Christmas, so I've had this book for almost a year and I still haven't read it. I mean, that's not an unusual situation. I have quite a lot of books that I've had for a lot longer, and Shannon has added this to my list because she wants to read it in 2023. I have read From River Solomon before, but the book that I read was The Deep, which is somewhat of a collaborative effort. So I'm interested to see how I respond to a original work from River Solomon. And oh, it's very tightly bound. Oh, but those papers, how beautiful is that? And it's another long blurb, but let's get through it. Vern, a hunted woman alone in the woods, gives birth to twins and raises them away from the influence of the outside world. But something is wrong. Not with them, but with her own body. It's changing. It's stronger. It's not normal. To understand her body's metamorphosis, Vern must investigate the secluded religious compound from which she fled and the violent history of dehumanization, medical experimentation, and genocide that produced it. In the course of reclaiming her own darkness, Vern learns that monsters aren't just individuals, but entire histories, systems, and nations. So it sounds really dark, really intriguing, and like I say, I'm interested to see if I enjoy their writing. Next up, we've got a book that Shannon said she is excited for us to read this and thinks it is just my vibe, and that is A Diary of Blood by S.T. Gibson. Not gonna lie, not a fan of the trad pub cover, but what can you do? They got rid of the beautiful cover when they traditionally published it, and honestly, I think publishers are missing a trick by putting out these less than beautiful covers. But I'm sure they've got some logic to it. I just don't know what that logic is. I think this is a Dracula's Bride retelling, but I will double check. This is my last love letter to you, though some would call it a confession. Saved from the brink of death by a mysterious stranger, Constanta is transformed from a medieval peasant into a bride fit for an undying king. But when Dracula draws a cunning aristocrat and a starving artist into his web of passion and deceit, Constanta realizes that her beloved is capable of terrible things. Finding comfort in the arms of her rival consorts, she begins to unravel their husbands' dark secrets with the lives of everyone she loves on the line. Constanta will have to choose between her own freedom and her love for her husband. But bonds forged by blood can only be broken by death. So yeah, I think, like I said, I think it's meant to be Dracula's Bride retelling, but I've never actually read Dracula, so I don't know if that comes from the original work or if there's more lore around it. I'm not really sure, but yeah, quite excited to pick this up. And it looks, well, looks thicker than I thought it did, but I think it is quite a short one, maybe. It actually clocks in under 300 pages, like just, but this is 299 pages. The next book that Shannon's added to my list is a book that she's got on a TBR list purely because of the cover and wants to know if it's any good before buying it, which, fair, I'll be your guinea pig. And it's The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He. Now, first off, the cover feels deceptive as these two characters are sisters, and I don't think this book is in any way queer, but I could be wrong. And the blurb says, it's been 3 years and 17 days since C woke up on the shore of an abandoned island. She has no idea how she came to be marooned or what her life was like before. She only has the rickety house by the sea and the android she built for company and a single memory, Somewhere beyond the horizon she has a sister, and it's up to C to escape the island and find her. A world away, 16-year-old STEM prodigy Casey is also looking to escape from the science she once believed in and from her home. The eco-cities, Earth's last unpopulated habitats, are meant to be a sanctuary for those from deserving lineages, for those committed to planetary protection, but instead they're populated by people willing to do anything for refuge, even lie. After a series of man-made disasters rock the planet, Casey must decide if she's ready to use science to help humanity, even though it failed the people who mattered most to her. So I don't really know what to make of this book. It does truly have a stunning cover, but the fact that I get a very different vibe from the cover versus the blurb does make me somewhat nervous. But also, I feel like I should at least give it a try and see if it's one that I'm going to enjoy, despite getting the wrong vibe from this cover. The next book that Shannon's put on my list is Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler, and about this book she's said, Effie's vampire era is coming back with a bang in 2023. I've never heard of this, but it sounds like a different take on vampires and sounds interesting. I can't remember very much about this, but I do remember that a while back I deliberately tried to look for more diverse vampire stories, and I don't think I own many of them, but a lot of them are kind of on my wish list on Amazon, so that kind of when I have an opportunity I can pick them up, and I think Fledgling was one of those. Well, I mean, it's a vampire story. So the blurb says, Shori is a mystery. Found alone in the woods, she appears to be a little black girl with traumatic amnesia and near fatal wounds. But Shori is a 53-year-old vampire with a ravenous hunger for blood and the lost child of an ancient species of near immortals who live in dark symbiosis with humanity. Genetically modified to be able to walk in daylight, Shori now becomes the target of a vast plot to destroy her and her kind. And in the final apocalyptic battle, her survival will depend on whether all humans are bigots or all bigots are humans. Also, before I move on to the last book on the list, and this is partially for Shannon's benefit, but also it gives me so much joy. And the final book on the list is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, and this is the Illumicrate. I think it's the Illumicrate edition. So it's got this really shiny cover that, I can see it like reflected back to me in my camera. It's very bizarre. And about adding this one to my list, Shannon has said, could be a good contender for a buddy read. Also, I've only ever seen people love it, and I need to hear thoughts from a trusted source before I believe the hype, unless of course we read it together. I think that's fair. I would add that I feel like I see people either love it or hate it. Like, I don't really see people that fall in the middle ground about it. And I read The Starless Sea and was just completely and utterly like baffled. It was one of those that made my brain melt, and I think for that reason it was kind of meh to me. So I'm interested to see how I respond to this, and let's have a quick read of the blurb. So it says, in 1886 a mysterious travelling circus becomes an international sensation. Open only at night, constructed entirely in black and white, Le Cirque de Rêves delights all who wander its circular paths and warm themselves at its bonfire. Although there are acrobats, fortune tellers and contortionists, the Circus of Dreams is no conventional spectacle. Some tents contain clouds, some ice. The circus seems almost to cast a spell over its aficionados, who call themselves the rêveurs, the dreamers. In the heart of the story is the tangled relationship between two young magicians, Celia, the Enchanter's Daughter, and Marco, the Sorcerer's Apprentice. At the behest of their shadowy masters, they find themselves locked in a deadly contest, forced to test the limits of the imagination and their love. Reading through that, I feel like I've been told that if you go into this book expecting one thing, you'll be disappointed. But unfortunately, I can't remember what that one thing is. I think it might actually be like a lot of focus on the competition element or the rivalry. I wish I could actually remember, but I do know that essentially people have said that one of the things that can kind of spoil the experience is having expectations for this book. So I think I would go in very much like, I don't know what to expect. Despite having read the blurb, I really don't know what I'm going to get out of this book. And that is all 12 of them. I'm just going to quickly hold them up so you can see them all together. So these are the 12 books that I would like to read and hopefully enjoy in 2023. I think there's some really good contenders amongst these. There's some I am somewhat on the fence on, but a lot of the time you never know when you're picking up a book if you might actually be about to pick up your new favourite book. So I am excited even if some of them do make me nervous, and I think that there's a good chance that 2023 is going to be an amazing year for reading. I'm just going to put that energy out into the world, to be honest. I would love to know in the comments what books you really want to pick up in 2023, and also any thoughts on any of these books that I want to prioritise next year. But until next time, love you. Bye.
There's a place